Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Ever wonder what bridges the gap between your favorite film genres, subgenres, and movements? CinemaScope is here to explore these connections, taking you on a thrilling odyssey through the ever-evolving art of cinema. I'm your host, Andy Nelson, and in each episode, we embark on a deep dive into the forces that sculpt the world of film. From the styles you know and love, like heist films or the French New Wave, to the ones you may not be as familiar with, like Turkish Yeşilçam or Brazilian Nordwesterns, my expert guests and I unravel the complex tapestry of storytelling, style, and innovation that defines the world of film as we unpack the myriad catalysts of change that shape these diverse styles. Whether you're a student of film, a creative professional, or simply a devoted movie enthusiast, CinemaScope is your gateway to a richer, more immersive film experience. Don't just watch movies, understand them, appreciate them, and revel in their artistry with CinemaScope. Subscribe today.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Adrian Moment on True Story FM. I'm Ocean. And as always, I'm joined by my partner in sports movies dissection, Jim Pullen.
Hey, what's going on, Ocean?
Not too much. I mean, it's kind of getting near the end of the school year and in the summer, so getting kind of busy. But I think it's about a few weeks ago now, I found myself in an interesting to me situation, and this situation was that I was at a high school state tennis tournament, and the reason, yeah, exactly. And normally I would not find myself there. And
I was like, and how'd you find yourself and happen upon this? But yes, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. But
that's
yes.
fine, that's fine. So we have we have a couple friends, and they have both of our oldest sons are seniors this year, and so he was a senior, and their kid plays tennis in school, and he was competing in the state doubles tournament for tennis, and actually he was the number one seed with his partner, so they were really good. So there was a lot of winning going on, so that was fun. But the thing that I realized when I got there, I grew up watching tennis, and I'm really using the word watching in air quotes, in that I paid attention somewhat to tennis. Like I knew who I knew who people were. I knew the big names. Obviously, there's Serena and Venus Williams. I knew who Martina Navratilova, Chris Everett Lloyd, Pete Sampras, Joachim Nokovic, Roger Federer, all that.
Andre Agassi,
exactly. Pete Sampras. Yeah, I knew who they all were. And every now and again on Sports Center, when they would show like the finals of something, I would pay enough attention to be like, oh, okay, well now I know who won, and that was it. But what I really learned at this tennis match where the tournament was, I did not actually understand how tennis worked. What I mean by that is the scoring.
Yes.
The way the scoring works about the games and how it's everyone of course has heard of course of 15 love, 30 love, 40, love and all that, or 30 15 and all these weird numbers, and you kind of know that love means 0. And then the rest of the numbers are obvious, but then it's like, well, then how does that then turn into, those are different games, and how does that then turn into, those are the points to get a game, and then how the games turn to a set, and then the set turning into the match. Match, of course, is the whole thing is over. Everybody gets that part. All right. And so I found myself, I'm talking to some of the people that were there watching it with, and they are having to break down and explain to me not only how the scoring works in terms of how they get to the 15s, to the 30s, 45s, and all that, which is simplified. It's just what you'd expect. Your opponent hits it and it's out or something like that, and that's how you get the point. But anyway, and then how those different scoring works, and then it turns into the game. And so you have to get effectively 4 points, which of course makes total sense in tennis, in that the 4 points are scored 15, 30, 40, and then 45, and that's the 4 points. So you get those 4 points, and then that's a game, and then you have to win. I think it's 6 games, but you have to win by 2 to win a set, and then you have to win. And then each these are high school games, so they were best 2 out of 3 sets. So if you once you won 2 sets, you've won.
You won.
Yeah, you won. And that's just the simple rundown of how it works. So it's not like it was overly complicated. It was just kind of interesting to me that I was like, oh, I don't really understand how this how this works. And so then you start to see the different strategies, and they talk about like what it means when you hear someone like they broke their serve, and what an ace is, and all these other terms. And so what I found interesting to me, and I was curious, I don't know if you've ever had this situation where I'm going to support a friend's kid, or I'm going to see something in a sport, and where I walk in the door thinking I understand the sport, and then after talking about it for 2 seconds realize I'm basically an imposter, and I have no idea how this works. I have no idea and no knowledge. Exactly. I'm a straight poser. I have no idea how this sport legitimately works.
I probably would have found myself in that same situation with tennis. It's like I'm aware. I remember from like PE, or I remember from a friend that I knew in high school that played, But yeah, like actively, I couldn't sit there and like have a conversation with somebody at that sporting event about tennis. I couldn't show up, roll up to tennis and start speaking the lingo. I know enough, but I would have to ask a refresher, like, "Oh, how many sets are we playing for this match?" Or how come like to get the match point, you have to have a 2 point lead to get the match point, I think, in
Yes.
championship settings or something like
Yeah,
that.
in
So it's like,
championships, yes. I think the same thing happened in this, although I'm not sure. I was fortunate enough to be rooting for the best players on the court, so they were winning a lot.
hey,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were winning a lot, and then they even had to explain to me how they keep score, because it's not the same when you go to a high school tennis match as like a professional, where there's a big screen with numbers and all that. They have this little rack with these little tennis balls in them, and then they move the tennis balls for the set, and so it just goes up and
oh,
down. Right, and then after each game they switch halves of the court, and so like once they do one game, they keep switching
right,
back
you
and forth.
switch.
Right, and
Yeah.
so then after a while, you start looking at the scores stay on the same side of the court,
Oh,
because it's
confusing.
yes, it's right at the middle of the pole. The balls are on either side of the net. It's right at the pole of the net, so the balls are on either side of the net,
Balls in the pole.
and the
Sorry.
balls, yeah, and the balls don't move, but the players keep moving. And then after a while, I'm like, are we winning? Are we losing? I don't know, because they were on the winning side last time, losing side. I don't know. And so yeah, so it was just really fascinating to me that I could at this point that I could learn so much um, about a sport that I thought I already knew and understood. And that leaves out. They started explaining to me these various strategies they were doing, and
Right.
yes, and some of the strategies I was like, I'm just gonna take your word for it. That's what they're doing, because I got no idea. So
Right. No,
yeah,
and there's so many different terms, I'm sure. Like I can't even think of like there's probably different terms to explain like the type or style of player, I would imagine too, like in,
yes,
you
yeah,
know,
there's some of that. I didn't I don't know if they were advanced enough to really have those descriptions. At least not that they were sharing with me, which I understood not telling me, since I was still trying to understand how do they score points. So
deer in the headlights, here he comes.
exactly, yeah. So they weren't going to sit down and be like, well, let me break down for you the strategery of what is happening here. And it's like, yeah, that's going to be too much information for me. So, but yeah. So after seeing that and really enjoying it actually then got me in the mood to watch a movie again that I hadn't seen for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that movie is Borg versus McEnroe.
It's the perfect rivalry. The baseline player and the net rusher.
The Swede, who at only 24 could make history by winning his 5th Wimbledon. Can McEnroe pull Borg from his throne, Arthur?
The only thing standing between Borg and that record is you. You and Borg are as different as two people could possibly be.
Is he backstage or something? Is he gonna jump out of a cage?
McEnroe is the bigger talent, but playing Borg is like being hit by a sledgehammer.
How does it feel knowing you'll make history if you win your 5th Wimbledon?
I'm just like anybody else. I'm not a machine.
The question, Turkov! Answer the question! The ball's on the line! Turk flop all over!
I'm going to issue you a warning for unsportsmanlike behavior.
What do you have to say about your behavior?
Let's talk about tennis. Does anybody have any tennis
Do
questions?
you expect anyone to root for you in the final against Borg?
Look, I get that You got your hero, you know, your gentleman, Borg, and you need a villain.
Shut up!
You don't understand what it takes to play tennis.
But people are talking more
You know,
about
I go out there and I give everything for this game. Everything. Everything in me gets left out on that court. And none of you understand it because none of you do it.
You wanna know what Bjorn's doing right now? He's in bed. His room is cold because he wants his pulse below 50 beats a minute. Every year he trains on the same court, he rents the same car, he sleeps in the same room. What is that?
You'll never be remembered as one of the greats. You know why? Because nobody likes you. The only thing people are gonna say is...
You cannot be serious!
I was that crazy guy that always yelled at the umpire.
We've all been waiting for. The world of tennis has never before seen anything quite like this. Can either man take any more punishment?
So when I first saw the trailer, what I really thought it was an old Lonely Island Andy Samberg movie called 7 Days in Hell.
Oh my God, that movie's hilarious.
Yeah. And it was just a stupid HBO movie. It came out in 2015, and obviously it's a stupid, kind of funny movie, but nothing too serious. This movie came out in 2017, so 2 years later. And so I did not see the Andy Samberg movie at the time when it was new, and then I didn't actually see this one until pretty much right about the beginning of the pandemic. When you had time to watch everything. That's when I saw this movie and really and really actually enjoyed it then. And so I think that for me, the movie itself, which is first off, it stars I can't even pronounce this guy's name, Sverre Gudnason. Gudnason? Yeah,
that's a great attempt.
Exactly.
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, he's playing. It's playing Bjorn Borg, and then Shia LaBeouf, which is part of why I will freely admit I didn't see it right away because I was like, it's Shia LaBeouf. How good can it be, right? Because I'm not a full on Shia LaBeouf hater, but I do recognize that his stuff for me is very hit or miss. Like there's some stuff he makes I think is great, and there's other stuff he makes that I'm like, yeah, this was just not a great movie. Although it may or may not have been Shia LaBeouf's fault that it was good or bad, but it's just it is what it is. You are like Bill Parcells said, you are what your record says you are. And so
wow, that was nice.
Yeah. And then and I also had Stellan Skarsgård, who I love. I love the whole Skarsgård clan. Even though he's the father of the clan, they're all great. And it's the movie itself is about the 1980 Wimbledon championship between Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe. So obviously Shia LaBeouf is playing John McEnroe, of course, and then but it's about that tournament and what happened in that game and that that time frame. And it's one of those things of where I enjoyed it also, not only for because of what it was trying to portray, but also because I didn't know what happened. And I found that was, to me, the best way to watch this was like, I didn't know what happened. I didn't Google what happened beforehand, so that way I could kind of fall into the drama of the whole thing.
No, and that's a good point. Like, no Googling beforehand. This was the first time I've seen this, so I did not do any like historical sport Googling or anything like that to see what was the net result of those two meeting. I was interested because I like McEnroe. I mean, that was like the thing growing up, that I remember, but I also enjoy this journey with you going through some of these movies. And then when we hit a movie that hits like that historical reference of the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, being too young, I don't necessarily remember. We probably watched it, but I don't remember it, or
I'd have been too young to watch this at the time.
I would have watched it with my dad for sure, or my uncle, like if everybody was together on the weekend or something like that. This would have been on.
Yes. Well, yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, if it would have been on if I'd have been in a tennis household and it would have been on, maybe I would have watched it with them. But I definitely was too young to then check it out myself. And then I think that while this is a slight tangent, I think it's interesting from a historic standpoint, where because this takes place, the match takes place July 5th of 1980. And since we recently talked about the movie Miracle, it's interesting to me that like these two events, the Miracle on Ice and this final take place really within 4 months of each other, because the Miracle on Ice happened at the end of February, and this is happening in July, and also some of the tonal differences in the movie and kind of how they're focusing, where that the Miracle on Ice deals with a lot of as far as what's going on in the world, and the Soviets invading Afghanistan, and that the U.S. is about to boycott the Olympics, whereas this movie doesn't care about any of that.
Any of that.
Yeah.
Zero.
Exactly. You will have no idea that any of this stuff is happening, and so I think that it's interesting, not only that you can have two different movies that are going around at the same time and same thing that are both global, because tennis is a global sport similar to hockey, and tennis was global back then, because really in the 80s there were a lot of what was considered global, and also popular in the United States there wasn't a big long list. Like soccer's never made it and is probably never going to.
Proper football, mate. Proper football.
Exactly. Yes, proper football is never going to make it in the States. It's always, it's been the rise. What people talk about. It's one of the highest growing sports in the U.S. This year, more 5-year-olds are playing it than everyone. It's like, well, every 5-year-old plays soccer, and then once they realize they can't use their hands, they move on. So that's how,
shout out to lacrosse. It's the growing sport. But
exactly. That's how American. Well, in lacrosse, you can use your hands, so Americans are in. All right. But I think that there is, that it was interesting to me. One other aspect of the movie, which isn't even in the movie, it was interesting to me that this is what's going on in the world at that time, and it's not brought up or mentioned or anything. But then also that that people could apply this amount of import to a sporting event, really in the middle of where you're having a few major things that are happening in sports, not only the invasion of Afghanistan, but also you're about to have the U.S. boycott the Olympics.
Right. And it's just, I didn't even come into the thought that 1980, July, the Olympics, like Russia invading Afghanistan. I didn't even put that whole thought process into play until, after watching the movie. And it was like, well, wait a minute. This is all happening during a particular important time period, and then you start kind of digging around in 1980, and then you see that Wimbledon's in July and all that. And it's like, oh my gosh, there was nothing covered in that movie. Like not even a hint, like not even like, when Borg's driving around in his rental car, there's nothing like, oh, hey, we got to stop and get gas. It would have been a perfect opportunity, when his coach is driving him around, like, mention something like, oh, we can't get petrol today because of whatever,
Right. Yeah, because I think there would have been a gas shortage in England at the time, although I don't know that it was as severe as what happened in the United States at the same time. But yeah, they could have something or something on the radio, some little some little broadcast of a thing. But no, nothing.
Right, like Russia invades something on such
exactly.
And such day.
Yes, it's all puppy dogs and rainbows. It's great. Not just to start an opening as far as what I thought of the movie and what for me was the best thing about it. And so, for me, the thing that I really enjoyed about this movie and actually hammered it home. I guess I hammered it a bit home to my youngest. My youngest kid is very active in sports and athletics. And so one thing of this movie to me was it was a great demonstration of two different perspectives on what it takes to be great, and just the different approaches these men had to get to the greatness of where, to get to this final, to get to the greatness of what this is. Because the backstory, which they open up with the movie with, is that Bjorn Borg has won 4 straight Wimbledon titles, and he's now looking for his 5th. And that McEnroe is the number 2 ranked tennis player in the world, and he's looking for his 1st. And so for me, the things that I found very interesting that were discussed or demonstrated throughout the movie was Borg with his meticulous nature. Everything he did was meticulous. He stayed in the same place. He drove the same car. He goes to the same tennis courts. He keeps the room cold so he can keep his heart rate down below 55 beats per minute. Uses the same chair. He won't step on the baseline. There's all these various things of where he is structuring his life over the course of a period of time, which I'm inferring that really it's about 2 months or so before the Wimbledon's going to start, that he completely is changing and structuring his life to get himself at the what he believes will be his peak performance and ability by being meticulous and keeping everything the same and keeping things regimented and being that way. In that way, he can also apply that to his tennis game. His tennis game is very regimented. He plays a certain way. He's kind of an excellence of execution more than anything else, and that's kind of what creates the consistent dominance that he's had to this point. And then on the flip side, I think McEnroe, who also is great in this, is really more. He gets there through visions. And what I mean by that is not that he sits and has smokes some ayahuasca and has a vision quest. Although that would have been cool if that was in the movie. I'd have been like, hey, that's a way to go. I don't know that I could do that, but hey, but
the actor probably has, but
yeah. So, yeah, well, however Shia LaBeouf gets ready for a role is Shia LaBeouf's business. All right, and so, but he's, in his McEnroe's drive, it comes from within, and his greatness is about envisioning what's going to happen. And as a younger child, really he'd have been a teenager in real life, because this movie does do, I think, a little bit of a disservice in depicting their age difference as greater than it seems, because they make it seem that John McEnroe was really young as a child, and Borg is already a teenager or young adult in Wimbledon, and they're only a few years apart in age. So I think he would have been more accurate if he depicted him as a teenager. He has a picture of Borg up on his wall. That's kind of why he's wearing the headband, and it's how he's envisioning this is where he wants to get to become as good as this person. He has a section of the movie where he takes his hotel room and takes all the paintings, all the art off the wall, and writes out the entire board, the entire bracket of Wimbledon. And he's using that to envision not only what is going to happen with him, but what's going to happen with others. So then he can envision it, and so it's like his vision is what he's going to then turn into a reality, and just what it takes to do really both of those things. And the drive it takes for both of those, because there's also part of it where when McEnroe's playing one of his friends, he has to envision that he is now in effect his enemy, to then make it where he can then get himself to that place that he needs to win and be great.
Right. No, I like all those points as well. I think I want to also additionally add, first of all, I don't completely love this movie. It was
okay.
It was a little bit of a bore for me. But the points that you were making.
Let's talk about why you were wrong.
Hold on. We could get to why I am wrong in a bit, but okay. I do say that the points that that resonated with you about the adversity that they were going through to get to this point, and for the preparation, I completely agree with you. The one thing that I additionally liked is that at the younger age of the two, they both seem to have the same temperament. Borg's got all of his temper issues, and oh no, it was out, no, it was in. Come on, you're trying to make me lose. You're stupid. Calling his coach all the kind of names. He gets kicked out of all these different tennis clubs and everything. And I like the similarities between the two. And being able to see, one is able to grow and be who he is, McEnroe, as we all knew who he was. He was the tempered tennis player. At least that's what I remember growing up and seeing him. And Bjorn, you see in the movie, he had that temper, but it was pretty much like beaten down in him that, you can't act like that. This is a gentleman's sport. You can't act like that. You can't act like that. And then you see it's like all of a sudden, like all of his emotions that he wants to portray outward, he just like tempers down. He just like totally just puts the lid on all that and is just like, I need to be focused. I can only focus about these things because it's just going to get into me and my temper, and I'm just going to blow up, and I can't be that guy.
Well, I agree that honestly, I think he was correct in that he couldn't be that guy. That would take him out of his game, and that it would take him out of his game, and it would make it where he's then, when you're. I honestly think in all sports, if you're concentrating on the officials, you've already lost, And so I think that there is that aspect of it. There is the part which you mentioned the scenes about when he's getting kicked out of the tennis clubs, where the view that tennis is this gentleman's sport that is kind of in a sense hoity-toity, and it's like, what is it, the guy tells his mom, maybe this isn't suited for all class of
right. It's
So
like,
it's
ooh,
like,
ouch.
I know, right? It's like saying, well, you're too poor to understand and appreciate this gentleman's game, so maybe you should go somewhere else and play hockey or something else where you can, which is what he was going to do, right? He was like,
Right.
maybe I'm more suited to hockey because hockey isn't so, the way you win or your sportsmanship isn't as important of an aspect of hockey, even though it is. You're just allowed outward emotions, I think, are more accepted in hockey versus tennis.
It's shown time and time, over all these generations of tennis. If you are outspoken, you are generally the one that is the fiery one. I mean, like growing up, the next big loud one was Andre Agassi growing up. And it was like if
Yeah,
he was good, he was a good player, but he could also speak his mind. But there were times that if he spoke out loud, it was still reminded like, hey, no, this is a gentleman's sport. You can't sit there and like yell at the ref like this.
yeah, yeah. But Agassi was no McEnroe. I mean,
No, no, definitely. No, 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 no.
when it comes to that, McEnroe's the goat.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, but okay. So I'm curious though to get back to in that So as I've kind of laid out and discussed earlier, like what one of the things I loved was about how this movie was about these two men's drive, and what it took for them to get to where they were, and also the other thing I did appreciate as a small movie note. Which could be off-putting somewhat for no, off-putting is the wrong term. It could be distracting sometimes for some American moviegoers. Was the all of the times they're speaking to each other in non-English, where you have all the subtitles and you're reading, and that but it always made sense because if I have two Swedes talking to each other, well then they're probably going to speak to each other in Swiss. I don't even know what language do they speak in Sweden. Swiss. German. Let me show.
Oh man,
Let me demonstrate some of my American ignorance. I
yeah,
think they speak
I'm right there
Swiss
with you. I
because
think
it's.
it's
I don't think it's German.
it's
It's not German they're speaking. They have their own. Anyway, whatever they're speaking or Dutch. Are they speaking Dutch?
yeah, maybe it's Dutch.
That's the Netherlands. So yeah. So
Official
whatever.
language is yeah, Swedish.
Yeah,
They got
Swedish.
their own.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, they're speaking Swedish. Yeah, so so that makes sense that they would then do that, and so I enjoyed that part of the movie. But I am curious then. So because that is what I did enjoy. What is it about? What is it that did not resonate with you?
I mean, I wish I could have like this long dissertation or this long argument with you about this, but I honestly, I just think it's just tennis. Like just
Okay.
straight up, it was tennis. I was trying to resonate with everything that we're talking about, about, the adversity and seeing what it takes to be, an elite athlete. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to knock tennis because it doesn't interest me or anything like that. It's tennis, and I get it. It's hard to play. It
Wait,
takes a lot.
that was your
Like
way
I
of
don't.
not knocking tennis?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay.
Like it's just tennis. Like it doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I've tried it for like, hey, let's do this to have like a nice cardio workout or whatever. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool and all, but like I mean, ping pong's the same thing, yo. Like I could hold a beer and play ping pong. You know?
Ping pong is slightly different because you can hold the beer unless you're going to do 2 feet away like in the Olympics. And honestly, I like to meet in the middle with pickleball
Right.
because I'm old.
Yeah, I love
I love
pickleball.
pickleball. Yeah, pickleball's great.
Yeah.
But
No,
okay,
pickleball's
so
great.
then, but when it comes to this movie, and I guess this is the part that I'm curious about. So when it comes to this movie, then if you don't like tennis, and as I clearly demonstrated earlier, I am just a poser when it comes to tennis because I thought I
Right.
liked it, but I apparently I
I
don't.
wouldn't say
Right? And
poser,
so,
but yeah, that's being a little harsh.
okay. Well, let's put it this way: any real tennis fan would basically be like, maybe tennis fandom isn't suited for all socioeconomic people. Telling me to move on. Right? But then but in the context of the movie, did you feel that the sport, like having to like the sport, made it where without that you didn't enjoy the story?
No, I mean for me,
Okay.
okay, I need to be connected a little bit more with the sport and or with the people. And it was like, sure, growing up, I liked McEnroe because he was throwing a fit. But I remember him only throwing fits, right?
Hmm.
And to his own point in the movie, when he was doing interviews at Wimbledon, and he's like, "Does anybody have any, I
Tennis
almost said golf
questions.
questions. I almost said
Yeah.
golf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any tennis questions for me?" And everybody just wanted to talk to him about his attitude. Um, you know, I guess I kind of resonate with that point because I only remember seeing him blow up. I only remember seeing those moments or asking my parents, like, oh, is this the guy that's gonna, throw a fit and he's gonna scream and yell at everybody? And it was, oh no, all right, well, cool, I'm moving on. But I mean, for me in the movie, it's specifically, it's just, yeah, like I didn't have a connection with the sport or with the story, but I appreciated everything that was being told for the people that the story is being told about.
So then, forgetting this, using the sport for a second, then actually, no, this is I'm gonna now I want to dive into all this. So then, getting the sport, then with the movie, if they had been fictional, instead of like McEnroe and Borg, everything the same, but they're like Jefferson Smith and I can't think of a good. Oh, Mads Skarsgård. There we go. I'm gonna combine Mads Skarsgård and Jefferson Smith. All right, are playing, and they're two fictional characters. Everything else is the same. They're just not real people. Does it still then, because I understand that you're saying with your attachment was about your attachment to McEnroe and Bjorn Borg, the real people. So if you don't have that and you have this same story and they're fictional people, then does that mean that because then if you don't like tennis, it's just out?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, even earlier we were mentioning about the Andy Samberg movie, right? I mean, that movie is funny.
It is funny, but it's fictional.
It's fictional and it's
Yes.
absolutely silly and it's like way out in right field.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that one I mean I wouldn't rush to go watch that movie right away either.
Right.
But yeah, and I watched that one in hopes of like, thinking that it was going to be funnier than it really was, and it was a super funny movie. But I was like, oh, they're just gonna like have all these crazy jokes about tennis players and just outlandish. Yeah, they did it, and they did it well. But it was just still like, yeah, all right, yeah, it was fun poking fun at tennis.
Got it. So then, okay, and so I guess the thing that I find is as fascinating and interesting about that perspective, and part of why I'm like, well, you're just totally wrong, is because that
which I love and appreciate.
It's fine. I mean, you're my friend. I love you. You can be wrong. Okay, and so then what I think is interesting in this instance is that I don't feel that the movie is as tennis centric, where the tennis part of it would pivot where I enjoyed it. Right, the tennis is the vehicle that they're doing, but it is really the story of, and I want to say two men, but in reality, I do not think this movie was really intended for English speaking or American audiences, because I know, like in Sweden, this movie is just titled as Borg. The fact that McEnroe's in it is irrelevant, because this movie really is more about Bjorn Borg than about John McEnroe. For sure. And so it is definitely, as far as it's two men. They do show you a lot, but obviously Borg gets a lot more screen time. It's a lot more about him, that journey from being petulant young child who's yelling and screaming at everything with tennis, to then allowing to subjugate that in service of his desire to be the greatest in the world. Because as a young child in this, he wasn't trying to be the greatest in Sweden. He wanted to be the greatest in the world, and accomplish something that no one else has ever accomplished. Like, well, since this movie, was it Roger Federer has won Wimbledon 5 times in a row, but other than that, no one else has ever done this. And so that he did all that to then get to this point, and all the pressure and everything he put on himself and all that to be great, and subjugate himself to then do that. And really, in a sense, so did McEnroe. They show pieces of that in the final, which we can talk about later. But the sense he did the same thing. And so I felt that the movie was really more about them and their journey in that process, and that tennis was just the vehicle in which that was taking place. Versus, if I didn't like tennis, then this movie then isn't good. Because in a sense, what you're saying is that if they had been doing the same movie but a different sport, you potentially would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah, no, but definitely. Like, yeah, other individualized sports such as like MMA or golf or
Yeah, I guess I don't necessarily agree that it would work with golf. Because I think that for this type of thing to work, because thinking about whether or not the sport in it is immutable, and so I think that it has to be a sport where there's one-on-one, there's an offense and a defense, and that you can do it over time with ebbs and flows. And in golf, I can't stop what you're doing.
But
right, in MMA and boxing, I can stop whatever you're doing. But in golf,
and I was thinking from a golf perspective, it was more of like the individual against yourself inside your head,
right.
Like even just this past weekend in the U.S. Open, Roy McElroy just he futzed a putts. He just like lipped it, and it was a small putt for a pro, and what is going through his brain at that time as he's preparing for
pro?
Yeah, for a pro.
What's a pro? What do you mean?
A pro golfer.
Oh, it was a small putt for a pro. Okay, I thought you were trying to say like it was for par or something else. I'm like, what's pro?
No, it was pretty much for the win.
Some advanced golf term. Okay, so it was for the win. It was the pressure of it, and so then he messed it up.
Yeah, so it's like to me, in analogous to this movie, if it was a different sport, I was suggesting perhaps golf because of some of the adversities that it takes an individual, very similar to what these individuals were doing in preparation and being prepared for Wimbledon. It's a one-on-one. So there was a lot of individual scenes talking about or showing us like what they were doing to grow to become the elite player, right? So to me, golf could easily fit in there.
I think even in addition to where there's no defense, golf isn't one-on-one. And so that's another aspect of it where golf has all these other.
Their score is against everybody else's.
Exactly, but it's not one. No, it's me against the world. It's like it's Tiger against everybody.
But it would have been the same thing. But it would have been the same thing for Borg.
Well, no, Borg is always only facing one opponent. Each match, as he progresses, is a different opponent, but it's only one opponent. So, for example, for Borg to win the championship in this, for example, he never has to beat Jimmy Connors.
But on Sunday in golf tournaments, you have to face the guy that is closest to you in score. So,
right. But I have to beat
one-on-one.
But in
you're
golf,
one-on-one for the last day.
Well, no, but they play in foursomes. So I have to beat everybody there.
Not on the last day. It's foursome was only on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
So the last day is just two golfers.
The last day, it's a twosome. Absolutely.
And that's it. No one else is. So everyone else.
No, because they cut the field on Saturday for Saturday and Sunday, so the field is already cut in half.
Down to two
for the most part.
Okay.
Well, no. I mean, there's other guys. There's like 60 other dudes, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of other guys.
It's no longer foursomes. It's now twosomes, and you are paired with the guys that are closest in score.
Yes, you absolutely are. But at the same time, if I'm 3 or 4 foursomes back, I can. While it's rare to happen in golf, you could have this monstrous day, and the people in front tank, and then you're winning. It isn't one-on-one. You still have to beat that person that's 10 strokes back. I still have to beat them. Right, one-on-one is like, no, I don't have to beat like Borg doesn't have to beat Jimmy Connors because McEnroe did it, so he doesn't have to worry about him. He only has to worry about McEnroe. Everything is it allows you for specific strategies based on the opponent you're dealing with at the time, and not having to do a generalized thing like golf where I got to beat everybody, so I just have to be good.
Yeah.
Right. Like I can't tailor my game to beat this specific person because if I do that, then maybe I lose because someone else does well. I just have to do great in golf.
I mean, there's a lot of that, but I do think that there is some strategy about the place you're playing and the guys that you're playing against in the finals.
Well, I don't know about but again, I can't stop you. Like if you and I go out and golfing somewhere like that, I mean, unless we're going to play with, we're not playing with gentlemanly intentions and we start talking trash to each other and everything during each shot, and I'll like every time you tee up a golf, I'll like, I'll yell out like loser or miss or something like that, since and maybe then I have a shot. Exactly. I hit an air horn or something. Yeah. So, but I can't stop you. And so I think that there's a one-on-one part, but I believe that, we're probably moving way far afield.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway,
digress. digress.
Yes, this digression of where we disagree not only about how great the movie is and about whether or not golf would count as the same type of sport.
I still think it is. But,
okay, well, I mean, Jim, I got to tell you, you're wrong a lot in this.
You're wrong.
Today.
I'm wrong.
Can
we just title this episode "Jim is wrong"?
Jim's wrong. Yeah.
Jim is wrong.
Yeah. Normally, Jim is right about a lot of things, and today he's gone another way. All right,
Subtitle: Jim is wrong.
Jim is wrong. Exactly. Okay.
So. Jim's wrong.
Okay. So then, but effectively, and I think that the other part of that then is if the golf. That's the golf. I can't believe I'm talking about golf still. If the tennis part of the movie took you out of it, then. What was your thoughts then when you were watching the finale, right? Because the finale was done in what I consider a very great and entertaining way, the way the Wimbledon final was set up, right? So then during those scenes, did you find that you were wanting to hit the skip button, or did you still find it entertaining the way that the tennis was being presented?
No, so your initial question was how did I find myself with those final scenes? And my head was
the last 30 minutes. Okay.
Finally, like I needed what little action there is in tennis, and I missed it throughout a majority of the movie till the end. And see, I think my problem was that I went into this like thinking a little differently, thinking that I was going to be maybe educated a little bit on the climb to the Wimbledon final for 1980 rather than like a little salt and pepper of Wimbledon and what it meant in 1980 and what it meant to those individuals. So I was thinking like there was going to be a lot more tennis action or tennis conversation just around Wimbledon. So not necessarily diving into the two people. I was thinking it as like Borg versus McEnroe, like the game or the match, not necessarily the individuals leading into the match. So when those 30 minutes finally came in, I was excited because I was like, okay, so what really happened? Because I want to know what happened in this match, right? It was like we got to see some of John's antics in one of the Wimbledon matches, and I think there was reference to another
the Jimmy Connors match. He does it in that one.
Yeah, which was great. It wasn't the full 6 minutes of it all, but it was great, or it was close to 6 minutes in real life. But yeah, I was excited for the final bit. The action shots I thought were great. I liked how it was like more on-field view and some views as if we were in the Wimbledon seats. I felt like there was like tennis action, like we were actually watching a tennis match that occurred in 1980.
Okay, but then I guess the other part though then is that if it was more of that, in a sense like more of the different matches in the tournament, then at that point it would require you to just kind of care about what they did as athletes, and to not really care about them as people. Right, because all the flashbacks and everything is about how they were as right. Because because at the end of the day, I care about the emotions that Borg and McEnroe were displaying at the end, because up until that point, the movie has given me something to care about them as a human being and not just as an athlete. Like for example, the fact that like a perfect example. So Jimmy Connors in a semifinal match, McEnroe's yelling, screaming, blah blah blah, and everything like that, cussing at him, and then beats him. Right. At no point in time do I care about all the work and effort Jimmy Connors put in to get to that point, and how this kind of is how he's crestfallen from this loss. Right. Because in this movie, he is nothing more than just an opponent in a sport. Right.
Yeah, and he's even introduced way late into the whole.
Way late the whole thing, and I'd heard of Jimmy Connors. I knew who he was. I'd heard of him as a child. So there is that aspect of it, and so it's a thing of where it's like, well, but I do care at the end of the Borg versus McEnroe match when when Borg falls to his knees and he kind of like the whole relief of winning and looking up and all that, and that kind of that like for him that's an emotional outburst. Let's be fair, and then McEnroe, when they show McEnroe kind of holding back tears or crying when he puts a towel over his head, starts crying. I understand that, or I feel that because I feel them as people and what it took for them to get to this point. And so I think that if the movie was just the tournament, I wouldn't care like that. It would then just be that this movie was just in service of show me the clips, show me the Sports Center version of this tournament, right? Versus if I have all this backstory about who they are as people, then the triumph or the defeat, like what is it, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, all right, or that part of it, then I appreciate and understand with it a bit more.
No, I totally see your side, and I definitely appreciate the effort that the movie had gone through. It's not that I don't care about the people or anything like that. It's just
Well, it kind of is, John.
oh no,
It's kind of
man.
like you're just saying, look, I just need them to be athletic cogs, and give me more sport.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
So okay.
I just I think maybe it is because I went into it with the wrong. I anticipated one thing and didn't really get it, and
Okay.
didn't get it the way that I wanted it. How about
Okay.
that? And
Okay. That is fair enough. That is fair
yeah,
enough. It was, yeah. So
now
okay.
it's making me want to watch it again, but then I would have to
Well,
rent it.
yeah. Well, you don't want to. Yeah. Well, I mean, no. If you didn't like it, I understand. I mean, I clearly am in the tank for this movie and absolutely loved it. And I loved not only, but what I did love was the way that they had the journey of the two men, and even like with the whole like the when I was talking about earlier, the thrill of victory versus agony of defeat. Right
Yeah.
there is the scene right before the match when they're standing below the sign that says, "If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same." So that line, when I saw it, my initial thought was, okay, this movie really wasn't intended. I really felt going in, like by this point, I really felt that this movie wasn't intended for English speaking audience, and it's a weird turn of phrase to say it that way. And so I
Mhm.
thought, well, maybe they were just, the whole like if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. It sounds weird when you say it. It's
Right.
and so I thought, well, maybe this is something that it was written in Swedish, and when they translated in Google Translate, that's what came out. And I was like, I bet this sounds cooler than the original Swede. And it's a great. It's from a great poem called "If" by Rudyard Kipling, which if you ever have a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. I wish my dad would have read it to me when I was a kid. I read it to my son. It was awesome. But that in effect, that sign in that moment beforehand is kind of really saying that in effect part of the gentlemanly aspect of tennis as a sport and kind of what they're wanting to then do and what they're trying to do and portray in specific with this is about how the triumph of the winning and the disaster, because at the end of this Borg has a triumph, McEnroe has a disaster, but to then treat them both as in your life is going to have all these highs and these great highs and these low lows, and that to be able to navigate them and to be able to navigate them, keep your head about you and move forward and recognize that both are going to happen. And that, this triumph that you have at this moment, like when Borg won that fifth thing, this is not going to be the greatest moment of your life. And the disaster of McEnroe when he loses, he's like, this is not going to be the worst moment of your life. And even though in that moment they feel like triumphs and disasters, that they really are just ebbs and flows that you then need to then process and live through the rest of your life and understand that these highs and lows occur. And that was another like a little thing that when I looked up what if was and saw it was great, and that I liked about that this movie was showing this dichotomy that is really something that is part of tennis and their culture, but also that it was really a great demonstration of what these two men were going through in it. And I just can't believe you didn't think this movie was amazing.
I All right, fine. Mic drop. I'm just done here. I'll take the headset off. I'm walking away. I mean, what else am I supposed to say, right? No, and I'm glad that you dug into that little nugget of info because that quote in the movie when it came in, I didn't even really think anything. I read it, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, yep. That's
yeah,
yeah. It's
same.
Right?
It was nothing because it's a weird turn of phrase.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, what? This is just some random writing on the wall.
No, and now I have the reference to the poem, and I definitely am going to read it and kind of dig into it. And you know, and as you were sitting here talking about it, I don't remember the quote off the top of my head. At the beginning of the movie, there's an Andre Agassi quote, and it was something like, it was like all the terminology of tennis is life. So you know, he says something like love. Oh God, I can't
Oh,
remember all the. You know what I mean? It was different tennis terminologies that was specific in his quote, and he said, you know, these are also all terms of life, and and so you saying this about this if poem and then the Andre Agassi, you know, just I apparently need to go back and rewatch this movie because there's a lot of heavy life hitting moments in here that can be uplifting as well as, you know, show somebody such as our younger sons and daughter, you know, that you're going to always face different adversities in life, and you know, you just got to pick yourself up and brush it off and take what you can from it and learn and move on, and many other messages. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I was just like, tennis movie, I just want to see
yeah.
ESPN version of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, and the quote I just looked it up for for posterity.
Oh,
The
thank you.
quote is, and I didn't realize this was an Agassi quote. I mean, it probably says it at the beginning of the movie, but that part went by me, where it says, "Tennis uses the language of life: advantage, service, fault, break, love. The basic elements of tennis are those of everyday existence because every match is a life in miniature."
Yes, yeah, there you go.
Honestly, even when I read it, I remember reading the beginning of the movie, I was like, yeah, whatever. But that's like now I'm looking back, going like, yeah, that seems kind of. It all seems kind of profound to me now, and I think that part of that is more just because of my real appreciation of kind of how this movie was being structured this way, and
Right.
being structured in a way where, um, you know, we watch. Look, man, we watch a lot of sports movies,
Uh-huh.
and there are lots of times where that, you know, some movies deal with the sport really well and, you know, do that part well. Some other movies are trying to bring home some other, you know, greater point that, you know, maybe they make it, maybe they miss the mark, I don't know. But in this one, to me, I felt that it gives you something other than just the sport.
Right. No, I totally see that. Um, you know, I do have the some of the, as I was watching it, you know, seeing like, oh, okay, yeah, you're, you know, we're dealing with life adversity and all that, and yeah, I'm happy that it that you really like this movie.
Yeah.
um, I yeah, I honestly don't think I could watch it again.
Okay.
And but it has
Well,
nothing to do with
I'll
the.
watch it 10 times for you. Not a problem. I
You
got
watch
you.
it 10 times.
I
You watch it 10 times.
I got you, bro. I got you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
No problem. So, uh, well, you know, and then I guess one other thing too about it, since it is talking about life in general and all that, I think we would be remiss if we did not discuss the Adrian moment of this movie,
Oh
and
yeah.
that is the written one. Tuva Novotny is the actress who plays Mariana Simeonescu, which is, I believe, how you pronounce that woman's last name. She was the wife of Bjorn Borg in it, and you know, she was really on board from day one. You know, she's a part of the machine that was Borg, and so there really was no. Actually, it's not true. They had one moment of where they slightly disagreed a little bit, and that was when she wanted to talk about planning more things with a wedding, and he was like, "I can't think about this right
Right.
now."
I can't think about this right now.
Right,
Right. Yeah.
exactly. Which is kind of like it's that to me is like a 0.25 on scale of couple disagreements, because he's just like, look, he basically was saying whatever you want,
Right.
just don't ask me, okay? You know, so she's doing the very typical, because my wife does this, and every now and again it drives me crazy, where she's like, no, I really want to know what you think, and then every now and again I find that, especially when it comes to home decoration, and that I recognize this is a tangent, this is a home decoration thing. It's like she'll want to do something in the house decorative, and she's like, no, I really want to know what you think. Oh, really? Okay, well, this is what I think. I think we're gonna go the other way, right? So then I was like, you know, I didn't care. Just whatever you want, right? And that's kind of what he's doing. He's kind of like, you know, right now I don't care. Just whatever you want, and that's the closest
Right.
you get. Other than that, there really isn't one. Even though I found her performance to be great, and I found her
Yeah.
to be important in the movie, you know, as what she was in terms of that. Really, there's like two main prongs of support that he has, which is kind of her steadiness of really understanding him more of what he's going through, and then Stellan Skarsgård, who was Lennart Berglund, the coach,
The coach. Yeah.
and the coach was really there to really push him to where he needed to get to.
Yeah.
And even when it wasn't the type of pushing that he actually wanted in the moment, he knew he wanted it and needed it to get to where he was, going, and he had that from that end of it. But those two things together became his overall support system to do it. But alongside of that, there is therefore no Adrian moment, because everybody's with him the whole time.
Right. Yeah, no Adrian moment at all. But his relationship with his coach, like ever since his coach seeked him out for the most part after he got kicked out of the last club, and then brings him over, and they're together forever until he gets fired. I mean, it's just like their relationship is just like, it's weird. Like it's almost like,
well, he comes back.
Yeah, he comes back, but it's weird. Like he wants to call him like Papa, like Papa.
Well,
Papa, don't throw balls at me that hard, Papa.
Exactly. Well, he kind of is a father figure in a sense.
Yeah, he is.
There's a lot of that in there, and then not only the whole, he's protective of him at first because he doesn't want him as a 15-year-old to play the number 20 tennis player in the world, even though that decision gets taken from him. He's kind of protective of him there, and then when it's going to happen, he ends up pushing him harder. I think that part of that, even the initial thing about why the coach chose him to begin with, was he recognizes, he'd been to 3 Wimbledon quarterfinals, so he understood enough of A, this is the skill level it takes to get there, and then B, when you're that close to winning but you don't win, you also understand a bit more about what it takes to win, because you've seen what the others are doing, and then you're going to analyze inside of yourself, what is it that they had that I didn't have, that why they won and I didn't, because it's not, because you usually when you get to that level, like even this match, the Borg McEnroe match does a great job of showing it, but many matches, once you get to like the quarterfinals of Wimbledon and on, right, at that point it ain't skill. The skill level among the players at that point, it's really basically the same.
Right.
There's a much more about the mental aspects and the preparation and all these little things that you're doing that are well beyond just how well you play tennis to win at that level. Because once you get there, everybody can play tennis. Everybody's good. So you got to have a little extra. And I think that he was able to identify in young Bjorn that he has that little extra, and that all we need to do now is cultivate him and get his skill well enough, and then get his mind right so we can push it and access that extra when he needs it. From an elevator pitch of the movie, so is it fair to say that as far as recommending the movie again, that if you wanted to recommend the movie to someone to watch it, you would just tell them skip?
No, I would just skip it. No, just skip it. No, yeah. I think I would end up telling them that, despite my vision and view of the movie, I would end up, suggesting to somebody to watch it because of the adversity of two men that are trying to, become tops in their sport, and you have 2 different goals of 2 different elite players that that were coming to collide at the same time. So yeah, I would probably just lead in a little bit more about the difference of how to overcome adversity and how to best prepare yourself to become an elite champion.
Yeah, I think that while I appreciate the channel recommendation to the movie that I love, I think that for me, I would tell someone, look, it's a great movie about the inner struggles and drive it takes to be a great, and it has the most suspenseful tennis match scene ever made. That last part, I don't know if it's true, but I really haven't seen a lot of tennis movies, so I'm just gonna say it's the greatest ever made. But like just the what it takes to be great, and that was the part of what I feel that is important. And I say important mostly because, and this is me being myopic, because my son is a pretty good athlete, and so he wants to he wants to see how far he can take being in the decathlon and how far he can go with athletics. And so here is a movie that demonstrates these ways to be great. And that,
right.
and that this is the part of when it comes to me with greatness. And I think this about all sports movies and all things with sports, in that truly great is mental. When you look at the greatest of any sport, you can always point to other people that played the sport that are physically just as talented, if not more so. and have all the all the physical attributes. Their game was just as good. Everything was there, but they didn't have that extra mental piece or that extra mental gear to separate themselves to be this level of greatness. And I find that one of the things I love in sports is I love watching great beat great. Whenever you have a dominant dynasty team of any kind in sports, like the most recent example is football with the Patriots. I'm not even a Patriots fan, but at the same time, when they were still winning and on top and being great and people were hating on them and all that, don't get me wrong, I thought the hating on them was great and it was fun and it was awesome. And they were not my squad, but I did love watching greatness be great because
Absolutely.
I think that is more difficult and rare than the underdog coming and winning. And why it resonated so much with me was that it was really just about what it takes to do that and what you have to put yourself through to get there. And that was what I found interesting.
Dagger to the heart. Dagger to the heart. No, you're right. Shit. I can't say anything about it. I mean, no, for real. It's no, and that is the one massive commonality that I think a lot of people take away or don't take away from sports. It doesn't matter what sport it is. It's the mental fortitude that everybody has to show up every practice, and you got to out practice other people. You got to outplay other people. You're always constantly looking for that extra additive edge. And a lot of the times it's not the physical side of that extra practice or that physical side of being bigger, faster, stronger. It's how to free up your mind to be the best athlete that you can be on any given day, or how to better prepare yourself mentally as well. And yeah, that's why I'm saying it's a dagger in the heart, because this movie is definitely all about that. And it's something that I should appreciate and resonate to in all the various sports at any age that I've ever played, at any level that I've ever played. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's the mental fortitude that can get you to that next level. It's not the biggest, fastest, or strongest person.
Man, Jim, it is always great to talk about movies with you. To everyone listening to this, thank you for downloading the show. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please review our show as it helps others to find it. Also, share this podcast with anyone you know that loves sports and